Everyone, and welcome to the June 21 meeting of the Ann Arbor City Council. If you're able, please rise and join us for a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Would our clerk please call the roll of council?
Councilmember Hayner,
Here.
Councilmember Dish.
Here in Ann Arbor.
Thank you. Councilmember Griswold,
Here, Ann Arbor.
Councilmember Song,
Here, Newaygo, Michigan.
Councilmember Grand,
Here in Ann Arbor.
Councilmember Medina,
Here in Ann Arbor.
Mayor Taylor,
Here in Ann Arbor.
Councilmember Ryer,
Here, Mackinac Island.
Councilmember Nelson,
Here in Ann Arbor.
Councilmember Briggs,
Here in Ann Arbor.
Councilmember Ramlawi.
Present in Ann Arbor.
We have a quorum.
May I have a motion, please, to approve the agenda? Moved by Councilmember Ramlawi, second by Councilmember Nelson. Discussion of the agenda. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The agenda is approved. We have communications today from our city administrator. Mr. Crawford, you're on mute.
You're still muted.
Sorry. I just wanted to thank the staff who worked the wet but fun Juneteenth event this past weekend. And to remind the public that the City Hall facilities will be open July 6th. Even though we've had a lot of employees working already out on the field, the City Hall itself will be open. Thank you.
Thank you. We now come to public comment reserve time. Public comment reserve time is an opportunity for members of the public to speak to council and the community about matters of municipal interest. To speak at public comment reserve time, you need to sign up in advance by contacting our city clerk. Having signed up with our clerk, please enter the number on your screen. That is 877-853-5247. 877-853-5247. Once you're connected, please enter meeting ID 942-1273-2148. 942-1273-2148. Once you are connected, our clerk will identify you when it is your turn to speak with the last 3 digits of your telephone number. When it is your turn to speak, you will have 3 minutes in which to speak. So please pay close attention to the time. Our clerk will notify you when 30 seconds are remaining and when your time has expired. When your time has expired, please conclude your remarks and cede the floor. Our first speaker today is Ralph McKee.
Mayor, I don't think Mr. McKee has joined us on the line just yet, but I do have the other 4 speakers available.
Is Mr. McKee here?
I'm sorry, Mayor, could you not hear me?
I can't do it.
Mayor, can you hear me now?
Can't hear you, Ms. Bodrick.
I can hear you. I can hear
Mayor,
you.
we're able to hear the clerk.
Oh, I couldn't hear you because I was on mute.
Mayor, I didn't see Mr. McGee, although in the interim, I believe he is now here.
Fair point. Excellent. I will make sure that I'm not on mute. Thank you. Our first speaker today is Ralph McKee.
Caller with the phone number 556, go ahead. Mr. McGee, you can go ahead and unmute yourself and speak.
How is that? Am I unmuted now?
We can hear you now.
Ralph McKee, 1116 Red Oak. I have two topics, Gelman and neighborhood streets, with a common thread, lack of transparency. I have written and spoken on these topics before, but a quick review is in order. On Gelman, recall this body, SIO, and the county all rejected consent judgment 4. Then at the May 3rd hearing, Judge Connors interrupted counsel's opening statement and said he would order CJ4. Many people, some card activists, then asked him to only order the parts of CJ4 that all the parties agreed to. And the judge said, that's exactly what I ruled. Yet the order that Scioto Township Bill Stapleton from Mayor Taylor's law firm prepared and that our city attorney signed off on incorporated all of CJ4, essentially the opposite of what this body decided last year. Card activists working tirelessly for years to get a better cleanup were outraged by this. It puts the wetlands that we were all concerned about at risk again and allows Gelman to get out of running extraction wells at 500 parts per billion, which had been deemed unacceptable. 2 weeks ago, I wrote you asking to get a public explanation and repeated that request at the end of the meeting public comment. I was told at the admin committee meeting the next day, Councilmember Iyer expressed anger at my request, and I also heard that the city attorney sent you a privileged memo. While using privilege to protect communications is often appropriate, it isn't here. The public is entitled to hear why our attorneys and the other attorneys usurp the role of policymakers, reversing decisions, including yours and ultimately ours, without even talking to you first. Remember, this isn't just me. This is the vast majority of card participants talking. The lack of transparency on a major item like this is truly stunning. Next, neighborhood streets, while of lesser importance, is similar. Mr. Hess said at recent meetings that in choosing which streets to close, he relied on purported direction from this body to weight views of residents of the proposed closed streets much more heavily than other comments, perhaps from people using the streets as connectors. I reviewed the relevant resolutions and I don't see any such direction. So a staff person appears to have made decisions based on non-existent direction from you. Next, when challenged how he compiled public engagement data, Mr. Hess said he chose not to count comments as being against the program if the commenter had pressed the other button, purportedly to avoid misinterpreting the comments. While some comments were indeed ambiguous, a comment like "this program is stupid" is hard to misinterpret. There were dozens of clearly negative ones. These two actions by Mr. Hess resulted in a badly skewed decision-making process. Again, I think the public is entitled to know how these decisions were made to close these streets, particularly the connector streets like Jewett, Rosewood, Summit, and Sunset. Remember, the comments were 22-4 against closing Jewett. I hope you and the city administrator take these issues seriously, but given recent experience, that hope is fading really
30
fast.
seconds.
Thank you very much for listening and have a good evening.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Mojan Salabi Asafani.
Caller with the phone number ending in 941.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
This is Mojgan Savabi Isfahani. Ann Arbor City Council is a bunch of reactionary, racist bastards. How do I know? Just take a look at their record for the past 20 years. We are living on the top of a toxic waste dump while they hobnob with lawyers and with Gelman and have luncheons and spend our money on fancy lawyers' fees. We sit on top of the biggest dioxin contamination in the world. This is a bunch of reactionary, racist bastards who has allowed this to happen. They keep talking about housing, and housing poor and housing for people while they promote the developers who are filling their pockets with our money. There is more than enough luxury housing and no public housing. This is this bunch. This is the fruit of their labor. They are so obscenely racist that we don't even have a $15 minimum wage rule. They don't stand up for it. What's more, they have turned their back fully on the public in Ann Arbor who have stood up over and over and asked for a resolution to cut off military aid to Israel. Thousands of us showed up at their doorstep a few weeks ago. Students at University of Michigan have been publishing articles demanding sanctions against that racist apartheid state. But this racist bunch of Ann Arbor City Council stands by the apartheid racist state of Israel. Ann Arbor City Council is a bunch of racist bastards, and they know it, and we know it, and we will vote you out. You are racist to the bone. You have turned your back to thousands of people in this town who have demanded cutting off military aid to Israel. We don't know how else to talk to you, and you will support the apartheid racist state of Israel by your complete silence. By your complete silence.
30
you
seconds.
are a racist bunch. We know that you are a racist bunch of bastards. We know it, and we despise it. And we will speak from today until the end of time to make sure everybody knows it, and we will vote you out. Pass the resolution that says no military aid to Israel. Do it now. Do it now and redeem yourself. Shame on you. I don't have any words to describe your brutal behavior. I have said all that I could.
Time.
Hello?
Thank you. Our next speaker is Blaine Coleman.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Israel just massacred hundreds of Palestinians just last month with your guns, your aircraft, your money. And as a result, your base, the Liberal Democratic Party, is running towards solidarity with the Palestinian people. Liberal Democrats are running to sympathize with the Palestinian people. You, the Ann Arbor City Council, are running in the opposite direction. Why? I think you're behind the times. You are teaching your children that killing Palestinians is nothing to publicly complain about. Kathy Griswold, are you a council member who keeps your word? You promised to introduce the resolution against military aid to Israel. Are you going to keep your word? Are you? Quite recently, you got down on your knees and apologized to City Council for even bringing a resolution that mentioned the Palestinian people. Are you finally going to keep your word and introduce the resolution against military aid to Israel? Jeff Hayner, you have promised over and over to introduce the resolution that says 7 little words: we are against military aid to Israel. Are you finally going to keep your word? Are you a council member who keeps your word? Are you finally going to introduce the resolution? You even told MLive that you were going to introduce the resolution against military aid to Israel. You never did. Are you a council member who keeps your word? What are you teaching your children? What are you teaching your children when you show them that the lives of Palestinians are so inconsequential to you that they're hardly even worth mentioning in public? What are you teaching your children? You're teaching them to kill Palestinians, to keep killing them, to keep giving Israel more guns, more aircraft, to keep killing Palestinians. That's what you're teaching your children. Do you really want to teach your children that?
30 seconds.
Do you have such a low opinion of the Palestinian people that you are willing to just hand Israel unlimited money for unlimited periods of time until they kill every last Palestinian? Is that what you want to teach your children? And really, if your whole base is running away from you on this question, shouldn't you be following your base towards Palestinian rights? Shouldn't you be? I think you should. For moral reasons.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Irma Major.
Caller with the phone number ending in 835. Irma Major. Press *6 to unmute your phone. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much. Good evening. I'm Irma Mayet, and I live in the 3rd Ward. I'm calling tonight about a city issue. I would like to urge the council and mayor to reevaluate the membership of the Planning Commission and consider whether it truly represents the occupations, backgrounds, and interests of Ann Arbor residents. This advisory group is composed exclusively of persons with personal and professional backgrounds in real estate development, building, and other related fields. Their backgrounds include urban planning, architecture, real estate development, and sales, property management, all fields that have a direct stake in the issues that come forward to the Planning Commission. The current membership does not sufficiently represent Ann Arbor's residents, all of whom have a stake in the decisions this body makes. According to the Commission's own bylaws, members should represent different professions and occupations, representative of important segments of the community, such as the economic, governmental, educational, and social development of the city. Representation should include the major interests, such as natural resources, recreation, education, public health, transportation, industry, and commerce. Where on this commission are educators, social service professionals, faith leaders, health professionals, community activists, as well as underrepresented minorities who surely have an interest in the growth and development of the city. Further, the bylaws state that membership shall also be representative of the entire geography of the city. Of the current members of the commission, only one lives south of Stadium Boulevard. Why is this a problem? The current makeup of the Planning Commission does not allow for a healthy and inclusive debate on the many zoning, land use, and development issues facing our city. Our city has entered a time of unprecedented development and is making consequential choices about major changes to infrastructure, transportation, and energy conservation. These decisions will have immediate and direct impact on the quality of life and sense of community in Ann Arbor. But this commission does not represent, a cross-section of Ann Arbor's residents. I believe it is exceptionally important to have more diverse and equitable participation on the Planning Commission and other city commissions. The
30
commission,
seconds.
as not constituted, is in violation of its bylaws. I urge you, Mayor Taylor, and council members to rectify this as an immediate and high priority. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Our next speaker is the Feast Gallimore.
Caller with the phone number ending in 099. Lafise Gallimore, if you press *6, you can unmute your phone.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, sir, we
Can
can.
you hear me now? Okay, my name is Lafise Gallimore, and I live at 3139 Plymouth Road in Ann Arbor. About a month ago, I spoke with the mayor about his sponsorship of a resolution to establish Juneteenth as a city holiday. This resolution was supported by members of City Council. My question to all of you, how does this resolution improve the quality of life of Blacks in Ann Arbor? I came to Ann Arbor in 1971, and at that time, Blacks were the second largest population group in Ann Arbor. Blacks owned homes and had specific neighborhoods they lived in. Through gentrification and other discriminatory practices, Blacks are now the third largest group in Ann Arbor, and within 10 years will probably be the fourth population group. My question to all of you, how does passing a resolution establishing Juneteenth as a city holiday going to impact or address the issues of Black students' abuse in the Ann Arbor public school system? How does this resolution address the fact that Black youth are more apt to end up in juvenile detention as opposed to being given job opportunities and employment that may divert them from the system. How does this resolution address the fact that we have citizens of this country who are enslaved under the most brutal system of treatment of the history of human civilization in this history of civilization, bridges, live on the bridges in the woods, but these individuals to this country from other places have no problems accessing resources and services from this community. There are descendants of people who spent 400 years of free labor helping to build this country, but yet cannot be treated as decent citizens of this country. How does this resolution address the fact that young blacks who grew up in this community choose to leave because they do not foresee them being a part of this community in the future? Mr. Mayor and City Council, there are blacks in Ann Arbor who are tired of your paternalistic attitude addressing the issues involving the black community. You need to learn how to engage a broader segment of the black community to get a good feel for decisions that you're making about establishing a holiday or any other activities for blacks. Since I arrived in Ann Arbor in 1971, blacks have not made any progress. As a matter of fact, if you conduct a statistical regression analysis,
30 seconds.
you will find that blacks have actually regressed. But at any rate, thanks for your wonderful work that you have done in working to improve the quality of life of Ann Arbor blacks. Thank you.
Thank you. Other communications today from council? Councilmember Nelson. Ms.
Thank
Bogie,
you.
can I have a removal of lower hand power? My apologies, Councilman.
Thank you. I just wanted to acknowledge that we did have a lovely Juneteenth celebration on Saturday, walking from Fuller Park to Wheeler Park, even though we all got a little bit wet. I also wanted to say that starting tomorrow, there's going to be resurfacing on Eastover Place, Ferdin Road, Crestland Drive, and St. Francis Drive. I think I got notified as a ward representative, and I actually think that all of those places are in Ward 3, but it's Ward 4 adjacent. So thank you. That's it.
Councilmember Dish.
I would also like to say how much I enjoyed Juneteenth. I enjoyed the walk in the rain, and I enjoyed the dance in the parking lot at Ipsy, as well as the storyteller. So that was incredibly fun. I want to clarify two things that I said in an earlier meeting. I did say that the TC1 ordinance is currently developer initiated. It is not a fixed zoning district. I want to emphasize that I said currently. This is not the end for TC1. Planning Commission will be embarking after TC1 passes, which I hope it will do in July, on a project to proactively rezone specific areas of the city as TC1, and they will be beginning with State and Eisenhower, which Planning Commission put on its work agenda and will keep there as a top priority, provided that TC1 passes council. Thank you.
Councilmember Griswold.
I want to publicly acknowledge that while I've worked on pedestrian safety initiatives for over 2 decades, I am no longer engaged in any of the pedestrian and cyclist initiatives in Ann Arbor. My focus is environmental issues and the successful EPA analysis of the Gelman 1,4-dioxane contamination. Recent projects such as Healthy Streets and the rectangular rapid flashing beacons installed across 5-lane streets and now on Huron Parkway at Glacier are not supported by generally accepted transportation standards nor crash data. Equally important, the projects reflect a lack of operational expertise. Council has had many discussions about the need for operational expertise in the transportation department, but it is still lacking. This statement is not a criticism of the skills of the existing staff, but another plea for this additional expertise, which Council formalized in at least one resolution. The RRFBs on Huron Parkway at Glacier highlight this lack of operational expertise and a limited understanding of the vehicle, cyclist, and pedestrian movements at that site. I'll be sending an email outlining what some of those concerns are. At this point, I request that city staff examine the actual operation, not what it looks like on paper, but how the vehicles and pedestrians and cyclists interact, and take whatever action is necessary to improve pedestrian and cyclist safety in this area. Again, I just want to repeat, I am not associated with these recent infrastructure changes in any way, and I do not approve them. Thank you.
Councilmember Painter.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Hey, I just want to take a minute to say a happy Juneteenth to everybody. I hope they enjoyed the weekend we had. Some dynamic weather. And I also want to wish everybody, all the fathers out there, a belated happy Father's Day. And also, I know this sounds a little odd, happy solstice to everybody who today is the June solstice. And it's also my father's birthday. So I want to wish my dad a happy birthday. And I don't know if he watches, but if he does, hello. And yeah, enjoy your birthday. I had an opportunity to see him over this weekend, and you know, it's always nice to have some kind of family to reach out to. So thanks to all the dads out there in the world for trying your best, and take care, everybody.
Further communication from council? I'd like to echo some of my colleagues. Thanks to the folks who've taken the lead, the several activists who've taken the lead in promoting and operating Juneteenth throughout over the decades, with particularity, of course, the local branch of the NAACP, which ran another excellent observation of the holiday. Its importance both as a celebration of the emancipation, but also, and perhaps even more importantly, an understanding and acknowledgement that we as a country are indeed founded as a slave nation, and that we have a tremendous amount of work to do in order to redeem the promise of freedom for all members of our community. I'd like to request confirmation of the following appointments that are presented to City Council for consideration at the June 2021 regular session to the Ann Arbor Public Arts Commission: Marietta Porter, Building Board of Appeals, Hugh Flack and Robert Hart, the Elizabeth Dean Fund in Nibel, the Housing Board of Appeals, Angela Rasmussen and Lisa Stetler, to the Housing and Human Services Advisory Board, Jason Talley. May I have a motion, please? Moved by Councilmember Ramlawi, seconded by Councilmember Graham. Discussion, please. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, approved. We now have before us the consent agenda. May I have a motion, please, to approve the consent agenda? Moved by Councilmember Fish, seconded by Councilmember Nelson. Discussion, please, of the consent agenda. Councilmember Ramlawi.
Thank you. Can we pull CA2 and CA10?
CA2, CA10. Councilmember Griswold.
I'd like to pull CA 19, CA 21, and CA 23, please.
Councilmember Dish.
I'd like to pull CA 17.
Further discussion of the consent agenda. All in favor of the consent agenda? Councilmember Hayner.
Oh, thanks. I just want to make a quick comment. We had a nice conversation this afternoon with some folks at AAPD command staff, and I was kind of jokingly asking them about the spin contract at CA9 before us, and I'm hoping that we can. What the comment that was that we were kind of joking about call 911 if you want somebody to come and recover your spin that's dead out in the neighborhood somewhere, and they said they hadn't received too many calls, but it's still a problem. And so I was hoping that the spin, the lesser of these, could put a nice big fat sticker on these scooters or something so that homeowners have a way to return them to their use. And I know we see more and more of them in the neighborhoods, and that's because people are actually using them and bringing them out to the neighborhoods. So maybe spin needs to increase their hub and spoke model a little bit and get a few more of them on the street too. So I just wanted to share those comments and things I heard from residents. Thank you.
For the consent agenda. All in favor of the consent agenda with the exception of CA2, 10, 19, 21, 23, and 17, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Consent agenda is approved with the exception of CA2, 10, 19, 21-23-17 with 11 council members present, all voting the affirmative, thus satisfying the 8-vote requirement with respect to CA 11, CA 13, CA 15, and CA 24. CA2, resolution to amend number 3 to contract with Waste Management of Michigan, Inc. for commercial refuse collection services, estimated $4,342,600 for an estimated total contract value of $20,172,000. Moved by Councilmember Ramlawi, seconded by Councilmember Painter. Discussion please at CA2, Councilmember Ramlawi.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, I'm pleased to see some things that are in this resolution. I do have a few questions for staff if staff is here to answer them. With this resolution, it has a few things in it that I have questions on. Again, the weekend collection service for recycling in the downtown business district is set to begin. When would that begin? And what's the definition of the business district? Are we talking the DDA district or a smaller footprint?
Craig,
You're on mute.
Molly Maciejewski of Public Works is here to answer those questions.
Yes, sorry, I was still getting let in, so I just heard the last one about whether or not the boundaries were the DDA or broader. Was there another question, Councilmember Romali?
Thank you, Molly. Yeah, when will the collections begin? And I'm interpreting this as just for recycling on Sundays, an expanded service. When would those begin, and what is the definition, I guess, of the business district? What are the geographical boundaries? And then I have another question. I apologize.
Sure. So this is actually for trash. Trash dumpsters in the DDA will be eligible for the Sunday service. There's a minimum of 20 accounts to sign up, but no maximum. So that's a difference from before. And it will be able to start once the contract is in place come July 1st, and people start to sign up for service, and we get that 20.
Wow. Well, that's welcome news. Obviously, I'm shocked. I didn't think we were going to see this service begin so soon. So so you're saying there's just 20 addresses or 20 that will be able to sign up for it?
So under the prior contract, there was a maximum number of accounts, a maximum number of dumpsters that Waste Management could handle on a Sunday. They've removed that, but there is a requirement for at least 20 properties, parcels, dumpsters to sign up. And we've already started engaging with the downtown stakeholders to let them know of these changes and that, of this 20 requirement. And it's not a very big number.
Wow. Thanks for being here, and thanks for the good news.
For the discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Approved. CA10, resolution to award a contract in the amount of $215,030.64 to PK Contracting, Inc. for the 2021 Healthy Streets Deployment ITB number 4678, estimated total project cost of $353,973. Moved by Councilmember Ramlawi, seconded by Councilmember Iyer. Discussion please of CA10, Councilmember Ramlawi.
Thank you, Mayor. I think I've went on record many times stating my opposition to this for parts of the temporary treatments that are set to begin in, I think, July 1st. The state of Michigan is going to be lifting all the restrictions beginning tomorrow. We're going to be spending a lot of money on things that I believe actually in many cases will make some of these other streets less safe. And so I just wanted to have a vote on this. That's all. Thank you.
Councilmember Nelson.
Thank you. I'd just like to echo what my colleague just said and add that you might not have heard Councilmember Malawi, the county is also lifting restrictions starting tomorrow, mirror what the state has done. And so, I mean, my challenge with this is that we are applying a similar solution to very, very different circumstances. And what we learned from last year's implementations is that when you choke off traffic on some streets, you're diverting it to other streets and just creating a problem somewhere else. And so our solution to that was to go from 26 streets to 34 streets. And so we're distributing a benefit to 34 streets and shifting the burden and the cost onto whatever spillover streets are going to have to shoulder that traffic. And it doesn't feel like a very comprehensive or thoughtful solution. We're going to have more problems moving forward when we hear complaints from the residents who suddenly see that all the cars are going on their streets. This is just squeezing one end of the tube of toothpaste and hoping that the toothpaste disappears. It's going to go somewhere. I guess my other point would be, I lost my train of thought for a moment there. I'm not going to be able to support this, unfortunately. This is not a solution that's appropriate for the time that we are in right now. It just simply isn't. I'm sorry, thanks.
Councilmember Griswold.
Yes, I won't be supporting this until we have the operational expertise within our staff department to oversee the implementation of any change. But in reality, what we're doing is, in some cases, we're sending traffic away from a street that has 2 sidewalks. We're creating a healthy street on this street A with 2 sidewalks, and we're sending traffic to street B, which does not have sidewalks. So it just doesn't really make sense. And I agree, it's a totally different time, but it seems like we are so focused on being a progressive community that we are going to do healthy streets, whether it is harmful, whether it is safe. And in some cases, we are sending people out into a street rather than on smooth sidewalks to a street that's pothole riddled. I get communications every day from people concerned about the quality of their street. So we're spending money on this progressive boondoggle rather than repairing our streets, which is a top priority of our community. Thank you.
Councilmember Briggs.
Thank you. I would just like to, I know some folks need to voice their ongoing opposition to this, but I would like to voice my ongoing support and my gratitude to staff that has worked very hard and diligently to bring this proposal forward. Their expertise is greatly valued, and I appreciate the work that they have done. I've heard a few criticisms around this. One, that this is no longer the right time for this. I think if you just do a few Google searches, you will see that we are not alone as a progressive city in terms of having learned some lessons earlier in the pandemic and continuing what we've learned to be moving forward some of those successes. So I'm excited to see this move forward. We also, one of the lessons we learned from last year was that there was some spillover traffic onto other streets sometimes. And so one of the things that the Transportation Commission did or asked staff to do was to take a look at that problem and to come back with a proposal that might proactively anticipate that. And so some of those additional streets that have been brought forward are anticipating that potential issue. And if any of the folks who live on those streets find that there's an issue, it's certainly something that they could reach out to the city about. But I'm excited to see this move forward, and again, very thankful to staff.
Councilmember Amali.
Thank you. I have a couple questions. Since this was passed originally, the announcement of Art Fair has been made that it's going to resume this year. I have questions on if there's going to be any modifications to any of this reconfigurations for Art Fair, and when I apologize, but when will the deployment end on the temporary installations? And also, it says that, 20% or more of the neighbors along the segment voice opposition to the deployment any time the treatments will be removed. Where do they go with those, voice their opposition to the deployments? Thank you.
Yes, good evening, Council. Raymond Hess, Transportation Manager. So I'll try to answer those in the order that you asked them. So forgive me if I missed one, or please repeat one if I skipped over it. So related to Art Fair, we are not anticipating any changes to the program. There are no directly immediately adjacent projects, as I understand it. The closest one would be South Main Street, but the part of Main Street that is already fully blocked on weekends probably has more of a direct impact, but in a good way, related to traffic circulation. And the neighborhood slow streets really are far enough removed. We didn't anticipate any impact to those. East Packard, again, is a little ways away from where Art Fair would be deployed, so we didn't anticipate any direct impacts to that. In terms of how long we expect the deployment to go till, similar to last year, we expect the temporary deployments to go till about November. Again, as we start to prepare for winter maintenance and the onset of snow is when those temporary deployments would be removed. And I did accidentally skip over your middle question. Can you repeat that for me?
Where residents go to voice their opposition if there's more than 20% in a particular segment?
Yes. Yeah, they can call. There's a phone number identified on the website, or there's a Healthy Streets email address as well. So healthystreets@a2gov.org is probably the easiest way. The only thing we would ask is that residents identify what their address is, so that way we can track where they live in relationship to that Healthy Street.
Thank you, Raymond.
Further discussion? Councilmember Griswold.
Another concern I want to raise is in looking at other communities that have healthy streets or slow streets. Most of those are implemented on truly neighborhood streets. In Ann Arbor, we seem to be using our Healthy Streets program to implement traffic calming, such as on Sunset, Summit, Chapin, some of the streets that really are not just neighborhood streets. And many neighborhood streets don't need healthy street designation because they're already healthy and people are already walking in those neighborhoods. I live on the northeast side of Ann Arbor, and people walk in many of the streets even when there are sidewalks. So I just have major reservations, and especially about decreasing safety in many areas, and especially for school children. Thank you.
Councilmember Song.
I checked in with the Ann Arbor Public Schools Transportation or Safety Committee or rep, and when this last came up for vote, they were very excited to see this come through as a way of supporting their summer programs. A reminder to folks that kids 12 and under cannot get vaccinations until later this fall. So when speaking with the schools and with families, they're hoping this would be a safe way to have some extra space beyond parks for kids to see school friends in a safe environment. So just a reminder, and hopefully, folks can also reach out to schools to have the same conversation. Thanks.
Councilmember Grant.
Thank you. Just want to make sure that we're being careful about the rhetoric around what a neighborhood is and what a neighborhood street is. People who live throughout the city deserve to be safe in their street, even if other people would prefer to get there faster in their cars cutting through. So we want to make sure, and part of what I think is really excellent about this program is that it's driven by the people and the requests who do live on those streets, who are proud to call those areas their neighborhoods, even if it doesn't look like yours.
Councilmember Nelson.
Thank you. I have it printed out in front of me, so I thought it was worth sharing that the Washtenaw County Health Department is lifting its mask and gathering orders for K through 12 school children. I think this is important information. And also the thing that I lost my train of thought on was that it was only a few meetings ago that we had development where there was neighborhood opposition to connecting a street. And there was support at this table for the idea of connectivity and the value of that. And so I guess it seems like we're at cross purposes when we decide that it's okay to choke off 34 streets for the benefit of the people who live on those 34 streets and basically take away that connectivity. That was the point I meant to make earlier. Thank you.
Further discussion? I'm going to be voting in favor of this. I think I'm delighted that we are going to be taking, I think, what are reasonable and measured measures to ensure that that streets are safe for all users, that they're safe for pedestrians, cyclists, and drivers. That's our key street goal, and I believe that the Health and Streets program promotes that in a way that is the right balance. Further discussion? Roll call vote, please. Starting with Councilmember Iyer. Ms. Bodie, you are on mute. So if you're saying words, I can't hear you.
Sorry.
No worries.
Councilmember Iyer?
Yes.
Councilmember Nelson?
No.
Councilmember Briggs?
Yes.
Councilmember Ramlawi?
No.
Councilmember Hayner?
No.
Councilmember Dish?
Yes.
Councilmember Griswold?
No.
Councilmember Song?
Yes.
Councilmember Grand?
Yes.
Councilmember Redina?
Yes.
Mayor Taylor?
Yes.
Motion carries.
CA 19, resolution to approve a contract with Ann Arbor Spark for economic development services in the amount of $75,000. Moved by Member Dish, second by Councilmember Iyer. Discussion, please, of CA 19. Councilmember Griswold.
This is just $75,000, but I won't be supporting it. It's really just sort of a symbolic token, and even $75 would fill a few potholes in our streets that are in terrible condition. So I'd like to focus as much as possible on our streets. Thank you.
Further discussion? Roll call vote, please, starting with Councilmember Iyer.
Councilmember Iyer?
Yes.
Councilmember Nelson?
Yes.
Councilmember Briggs?
Yes.
Councilmember Ramlawi?
Yes.
Councilmember Hayner?
No.
Councilmember Dish?
Yes.
Councilmember Griswold?
No.
Councilmember Song?
Yes.
Councilmember Grand?
Yes.
Councilmember Redina?
Yes.
Mayor Taylor?
Yes.
Motion carries.
CA 21, resolution to approve the settlement and mutual release agreement between the City of Ann Arbor and the Michigan Department of Environment, Great Lakes and Energy, EGLE, to resolve challenges to the National Pollutant Discharge Elimination Program, NPDES permit for the city's wastewater treatment plant. Moved by Councilmember Dish, second by Councilmember Griswold. Discussion, please, of CA 21. Councilmember Griswold.
I will be supporting this settlement, but I'm really disappointed that as a progressive city, or a city that likes to consider itself progressive, that our phosphorus level is higher than what most progressive cities would consider acceptable.
Councilmember Hayner.
Thanks. Yeah, I think, it'd be awesome if we had zero phosphorus. And I kind of agree with what Councilwoman Griswold just said. I just wanted to comment on this one because it's an example of the relationships that we have, regional relationships and responsibilities we have environmentally. So these Middle Huron partners at Dexter, Chelsea, Loch Alpine, and us, and we have for the public who doesn't know what was going on here, We're basically being accused of violations of our NPDES, of our discharge permits at our wastewater treatment plant because of the quality of the algae in Ford and Belleville lakes. And I thought that this was a decent agreement that we came to, and I want to thank folks who got us this far. Well, I agree that we should be working as a group of regional communities to reduce it to zero. We aren't the only ones who have control over phosphorus in the Huron, of course, because of all the watershed issues. And so by setting our goals out to 2040, I think it hopefully gives time for other, phosphorus inducing products and procedures and practices to change, to improve, so that we can get underneath those limits. And it also gives wastewater treatment tech time to catch up. I also like the part where we made the suggestion, and I've heard this before from people who spoke about this, that, if Ford and Belleville Lakes did better mixing, if the yacht club didn't want the levels at certain heights and so on, that we might not have these problems with this lake if these waterways were allowed to course their natural course. And so I just wanted to suggest my thanks for everybody who worked on this. And I hope for our support for this. It's better than nothing. And actually it's better than a lot of things. So thank you.
Councilmember Dish.
Yeah, I just wanted to briefly say that the city has been struggling with this issue with Eagle imposing higher restrictions on our wastewater treatment plant with respect to phosphorus since 1999. And what has happened here that is important is that Eagle is using a strategy of restricting what we discharge and not recognizing what actually is causing green-blue algae blooms in the Huron River. And what is actually causing those algae blooms is runoff from fertilizer and, as Councilmember Hayner said, low flow conditions that then get interrupted, and then the algae blooms, like if there's a temperature shift or a rainfall or something like that. And so our wastewater treatment plant is not the problem. The problem is what is called mixing. Councilmember Hayner used that great word, and I won't try to explain it because though I feel I understand it, I don't understand it well enough to explain it. This is what's at stake here is not so much what we are doing, but what Eagle is not recognizing that it takes to manage an ecosystem. And hopefully we will be able to persuade them of an ecosystem approach as we go through the next years. So I agree that this is a good settlement, but I don't want anyone to think that we are somehow mismanaging our water discharge, because we're not.
Further discussion? Roll call vote, please, starting with Councilmember Iyer.
Councilmember Iyer?
Yes.
Councilmember Nelson?
Yes.
Councilmember Briggs?
Yes.
Councilmember Romlawi?
Yes.
Councilmember Hayner?
Oh, yes.
Councilmember Dish?
Yes.
Councilmember Griswold?
Yes.
Councilmember Song?
Yes.
Councilmember Grand?
Yes.
Councilmember Redina?
Yes.
Mayor Taylor?
Yes.
Motion carries.
23, resolution to increase the Downtown Development Authority fiscal year 22 budget amount of $554,704. Moved by Councilmember Griswold, second by Councilmember Dish. Discussion, please, of CA 23. Councilmember Griswold.
One question for staff. Is this funding for a cycle track or protected bike lane on Division Street? I don't see that in our board packet, but that's what I was told.
Mayor, I may be able to address that. Mrs. Bashan's on, that may be able to assist as well. But this is money that I believe will be used in part on that cycle track portion on Division. It was leftover bond proceeds that we needed to incorporate in the budget. Ms. Bashan, yeah. Did I miss anything there? Okay.
Yeah, Ms. Bashan, you are on mute.
I didn't hear your response. Sorry. I was
I said yes, it was related to cycle track, among other things, and it's making up some bond proceeds that needed to be
Yeah.
expended.
That's correct. It's spending the balance of the bond proceeds, and it does include some bike path work on Division and William.
Further discussion? Roll call vote, please, starting with Councilmember Iyer. Boji, you're on mute.
Sorry about that.
No worries.
Having a computer issue. Councilmember Iyer?
Yes.
Councilmember Nelson?
Yes.
Councilmember Briggs?
Yes.
Councilmember Ramlawi?
Yes.
Councilmember Hayner?
Yes.
Councilmember Dish?
Yes.
Councilmember Griswold?
Yes.
Councilmember Song?
Yes.
Councilmember Grand?
Yes.
Councilmember Medina?
Yes.
Mayor Taylor?
Yes.
Motion carries.
EA 17, resolution to approve a purchase order with Axon Enterprise, Inc. for Axon taser and body worn camera upgrades and related 5-year addendum in the amount of $915,177. Moved by Councilmember Dish, seconded by Councilmember Iyer. Discussion, please, if CA 17, Councilmember Dish.
Thank you. Good. I see Councilmember Hayner's hand is up as well. We, as Councilmember Hayner mentioned, we had a conversation with AAPD today, and we both agreed that we wanted to pull this from the consent agenda to address some concerns that residents have raised. And I would like to say 3 things, and they are that AAPS already has this technology, and they are using it as far as their annual use of force report suggests that they are using it safely, that much of the time when tasers are in play in an encounter, they are displayed rather than deployed or discharged. And this is an upgrade that will provide better safety and better transparency. And I will let Councilmember Hayner elaborate on those points.
Oh, well, hey, I see Chief Cox is here too. Yeah, thanks for meeting with us today, Chief. We always have a good time and always learn something. So, yeah, I guess the thing I wanted to say was it kind of came out at our meeting that, you know, we've had a couple of folks email us and say, well, you know, arming the police, tasers, and so on. And as Councilwoman Dish pointed out, you know, this is an upgrade to a system that we already have in place. It's an upgrade that allows the police camera system that we work with, the body cam system, to automatically be activated when the taser is deployed, not necessarily deployed, but even unholstered. And deployment would be when it's actually used, right? So, and also in that case, but I think it's a good thing for transparency and record keeping. And, you know, it's a necessary police tool. Like the truth is, there are times in our society in dealing with the public when there are reasonable uses of force necessary. The police have and follow an escalation of force protocol. And you know, this is really a step between, you know, I would much rather have an officer unholster and use a taser to defuse a situation than a firearm. And I think that that's represents a reasonable, you know, de-escalation if you look at it not being in place. And so one thing I did find interesting, if you look at the PO, it's just for my council colleagues, that they don't actually charge us for the taser. They provide the tasers and then devices and the equipment, and they charge us for the service to use them. And I just thought there was an interesting model. It's sort of a contemporary model, but it sort of comes with the warranty that they all work and they function properly. And I'm sorry that we live in a world where these tools are necessary, but it seems like they are. And so I'm going to support this.
Councilmember Griswold.
This is a question for the chief, but as background, I was totally appalled a little over a year ago to learn that some of our police officers did not even have functioning body cams, and others were using the old technology. So given that community members have cell phones with cameras, I think it is critical that we get the perspective from the police officer as well as from community members. And I would just like the police chief to speak about how important this is, if it is, and also will all of our police officers now have the latest technology in terms of body cams and that are activated when the taser is removed from the holster? And
Yes. Well, it's certainly the latest that we know about. Of course, technology changes very quickly, so I can't speak to the future, but it is the latest. The good thing about this is the tasers are now yellow. It's a safety feature. Our oldest tasers were black prior to this. So the high visibility yellow, lends to less mistakes, certainly. And the fact is that they are synced. So every time you deploy a taser, just take it out of the holster, the camera will come on no matter what. They are linked together. So transparency wise, it goes a long way to make sure that we are very transparent about the use of it. As far as the number, we have tasers, but we don't use them very much. I think in all of 2020, we deployed it twice. And in the year before that, we deployed it 4 times. So, even though we have these weapons, it's not something that, these less lethal devices, I should say, this is not something that we use frequently. And, de-escalation and all the things around that are our primary source of what we try to use before we would even use this. So hopefully this answers your questions.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
For the discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It's approved. Public hearings. We now come to one public hearing. Public hearings are opportunities for members of the public to speak to council and the community about a specific item on the agenda. To speak at a public hearing, one need not have signed up in advance, but one's speech must relate to the subject matter of the public hearing. That is to say, the specific item on the agenda. To speak at a public hearing, please enter the number on your screen. That is 877-853-5247. 877-853-5247. Once you're connected, please enter meeting ID 942-1273-2148. 942-1273-2148. Once you are connected further, please enter *9, *9 to indicate that you wish to speak. Once you've entered *9 to indicate that you wish to speak, our clerk will identify you when it is your turn to speak by the last 3 digits of your telephone number. When our clerk has identified you with the last 3 digits of your telephone number, it is your turn to speak. Please unmute your phone by entering *6, and you will have 3 minutes in which to speak. So please pay close attention to the time. Our clerk will notify you when 30 seconds are remaining and when your time has expired. When your time has expired, please conclude your remarks and cede the floor. Public hearing number 1, an ordinance to amend Chapter 112, non-discrimination, Section 9151, Title 9 of the Code of the City of Ann Arbor to add definition of race to include prohibition against race-based hair discrimination. Is there anyone who would like to speak at this public hearing?
Mayor, I don't see any callers on the line.
If you would like to speak at this public hearing, please enter *9 now. Seeing no one, this public hearing is closed. A1, we have before us the regular session meeting minutes of June 7, 2021. May I have a motion, please, to approve these minutes? Moved by Councilmember Omlawi, seconded by Councilmember Grand. Discussion, please, of A1. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes are approved. B1, an ordinance to amend Chapter 112, non-discrimination, Section 9151, Title 9 of the Code of the State of Ann Arbor to add definition of race to include prohibition against race-based hair discrimination. Moved by Councilmember Medina, seconded by Councilmember. Yes, discussion, please, of B1. Councilmember Medina.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I can be really brief here since we have talked about this before. I just wanted to use this as another opportunity to thank the community members who provided input on this, the members of the Human Rights Commission and my co-sponsors, but also to use this as an opportunity to call on the state legislature to pass the Crown Act statewide so that we don't continue to have civil rights protections in place piecemeal, but by progressive cities that are willing to lead. So I hope that the state will follow our lead on this and will pass this statewide. But thank you all for your support.
Further discussion? Favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It is approved. C1, ordinance to amend Chapter 8, Organization of Boards and Commissions, Sections 1214 and 1215, Title 1 of the Code of the State of Art, to amend commission appointment process, add exceptions to allow early review of incidents in limited cases, and increase the number of information managers, all to the Independent Community Police Oversight Commission. Moved by Council Member Nelson, seconded by Council Member Adina. Discussion, please, of C1, Council Member Unlaway.
Thank you, Mayor. And thanks to staff and Councilmember Nelson and Councilmember Adina with the City Attorney's Office and Mr. Crawford with meeting us last Thursday to discuss these changes. There are 3 changes that are being proposed with the support of ICPOC. One is to increase the information managers to allow them more flexibility and essentially a bookkeeper with those investigations, and increasing the information managers to 5 from what now reads 3 in the ordinance. Second would be to have the recommendation of the commission for any of the nominees that we vote on to be appointed to ICPOC, so that that they have a voice and who is sat on the commission, so they can have the people who best fits their needs when those needs arise. They're changing. So this again would still, the names would still be put forth by the 4 council members who are tasked with the responsibility now, but we'd also have to have the recommendation, the blessings of the commission for those names. And lastly, this is a change to the investigative powers of the commission and certain exceptions to begin looking into matters before all the appeals processes and due process are exhausted. So this is as a result of the Wimberley incident, and allowing the commission to begin work while there's still ongoing appeals regarding some of the decisions that came out of that incident. So I look forward to the body hopefully supporting this and answer any questions that people may have, but perhaps there's other people on the call that can answer them better than I can even. Thank you.
Mayor, I forgot to mention that we had Dr. Jackson here also, who is available to make a few comments about this. She and I had worked on this to start with.
Council's of the essence. Dr. Jackson.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me. I know this is not where I'm usually talking to council, but I did want to talk just really briefly about this with you guys. As mentioned before, I'm Lisa Jackson. I'm the chair of the Independent Community Police Oversight Commission. So thank you, City Administrator Crawford, for adding me to the agenda. And thank you to council for considering changes to the ordinance that governs our work. I just want to briefly explain our position on these 3 potential changes. So first, the nomination process. Initially, commissioners were appointed through a process where the Human Rights Commission reviewed applications and made suggestions to a team of council members. And unfortunately, I think it was just a typo probably, the ordinance suggested that future commissioners, once we were all seated and had replacement commissioners, should be appointed by the same process. And the Human Rights Commission has made it clear that they don't want to be involved in that process, nor would that be appropriate. So we've requested that we will read applications and interview candidates and make decisions about what demographics might best fit us. Do we need an undocumented person, for example? Do we need a formerly incarcerated person, a person who is or has been unhoused? We'd ask questions about how many hours can a person contribute to the work? Can they go through the rigorous training required to do good oversight? And so these are things that we consider. We know that the ordinance also says actually that people need not fill out an application, and we want to strongly sort of disagree with that point. We think applicants do need to articulate their intent, their expected contributions, how much time they can commit, and how they perceive of police oversight. So the commission, after undergoing this rigorous process, would like to make recommendations to the 4 liaisons, 2 from HRC and 2 from ICPOC, who can then evaluate our recommendations, evaluate that criteria, and decide whether to take the names forward to the full council for a vote. Most importantly, though, our commission is independent, which differs from other city commissions. This commission was started in large part by a demand from the community, and we want it to be as free from political influence as possible. That is necessary for the commission to retain its independent integrity, which is critical to all civilian oversight across the country. And it's also necessary to live up to the spirit of the creation of this commission. The second thing is information managers. So the ordinance provides for up to 3 information managers, and we'd like to expand that to 5, and I'd just like to explain why. Information managers are simply commissioners who have had a little bit of extra training and have expertise in complaint review. And so prior to a complaint review meeting, what happens is the police release information like body cam video or dash cam video or internal documents to the information managers assigned to a case. Those 3 individuals then show up after having reviewed that information, show up at a meeting with police leadership and professional standards, and we review details of the case and ask questions of the police. And so I want to give you an example of why we wanted to increase the number. In one case, one of our commissioners was unable to attend one of these meetings after having reviewed the documents, and we wanted to substitute with another information manager, but that would have meant that 4 people would have seen the documentation, and that was in violation of the ordinance. So in that case, we had to work with just 2 commissioners instead of 3. There have been a couple other cases where we needed the expertise of a specific commissioner and wanted to add them or have them review the documents, and we weren't able to do that. It's also been brought to our attention that an information manager might find after reviewing the documents that he or she might know a complainant or would need to recuse him or herself from reviewing that case for whatever reason. And thus having a 4th person be able to see the information would be necessary, even though there would still only be 3 commissioners involved in the complaint review meeting. So this is really about access to information. The 5th information manager would likely never attend the police meetings, but we need 1 person who tracks all of the cases. So there are often 3 commissioners on one case, 3 different commissioners, or a different combination of 3 commissioners on another case. And we need 1 person with access to all of the data who can start to pay attention to trends in pattern and practice. And so it's my understanding that the police have sort of made a complaint that 5 information managers is too unwieldy, but in all actuality, the process on their end would likely not change at all. They would still work with 3 commissioners as they have been. We need the 4th in case of something like a conflict of interest or an unexpected unavailability or something like that. So there would not be more people in these meetings simply, but there would be more people who would have access to the information. And then the third thing I understand that you guys are considering is the early review of incidents. And so I want to bring up that this is not an issue that we asked for. We did not come forward and ask the ordinance be changed in this way. It was brought to us by City Administrator Crawford in response to the Wimberley incident, as Councilmember Ramlawi mentioned, where the police broke into the wrong house in response to a 911 call. Our process has always been to review police cases after the police were finished, because that's the way the ordinance was written, and so that's how we've worked. However, City Administrator Crawford suggested to us several times that we needed to be able to review this case before the police process was finished. It's still not quite finished, and it may take some time. We don't know how long that's going to be. We were a little bit perplexed at that because this goes against the way we've been working since our inception. We're not necessarily opposed to it. And on one hand, this kind of seems similar to what the task force asked for, but it's not exactly the same thing. It doesn't allow us to work in parallel with police investigations typically, only in specific cases and only with the police chief's permission. We see some potential problems, maybe some things that you guys could sort of work through as you consider changing the ordinance. So for example, if we were to discuss or write in a report about potential discipline of an officer, but if the officer were to go through an appeals process, have that discipline removed, which means in effect that it actually never happened to them, then I'm quite sure that the union would file a grievance against us because we discussed a discipline that didn't exist anymore. And so we're fine with investigating in parallel or in tandem or slightly behind, but we'd want to make sure that there were no adverse consequences to us. So we'd like to be immune from that kind of grievance from the union. We'd also like to understand when this sort of early review process could be enacted. Is it a process that can be requested by us, or does early review only happen when requested by the city or by the police or something like that? So clarification in that way as you guys mull this over would be appreciated. And so I just wanted to kind of bring those points forward, and we appreciate your review and potential revisions to the ordinance. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Councilor Nelson.
I just wanted to quickly say that I was pleased to see an item like this on our agenda, because this is what I envisioned when the ICPOC was seated, that we would get feedback from the seated commission about what their needs were and how the ordinance could be adapted to meet their needs. And I'm particularly pleased to see the terms defined around appointments, because I've said for a long time that I believe that this is the kind of appointment process that should exist for all of our boards and commissions. I'm glad to see ICPOC have this sort of empowerment. It's appropriate for the special kind of commission that they are, but I think it's just a good thing generally. Thanks.
Councilmember Briggs.
Thank you, and I really appreciate Dr. Jackson providing that background. It was answered a lot of questions, and I'll continue to maybe have some before this comes to us for second reading. I do have a few concerns around the membership piece around adding the component of have the recommendation from the commission. I think it's, Dr. Jackson's explanation helps me understand how that would be beneficial in terms of putting forward different voices that are really needed on the commission. And I don't really have any concerns about that as the commission operates right now. I just down the line could imagine that this could lead to odd situations, even though ICPOC operates differently than some of our other commissions. It seems like this could be a little unusual to have the commission itself making a recommendation around who should move forward on the commission. So just something I wanted to voice now. I need to think through more and get more information on it before it comes back to us.
Member Dean.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor, and to Councilmember Briggs's comments. This is actually exactly what Councilmember Ramlawi, Nelson, and I met with staff about earlier this week, and I think we also wanted to get some clarity, and we actually changed the language a little bit as well to make sure that that it was clear. I think the intention here is to recognize that that ICPOC acts differently, as you noted, from the rest of our commissions, but also to allow them to maintain some of that independence and to ensure that this council or future councils aren't dramatically changing the nature of the commission through the appointment process, but rather that the commission maintains its independence in a way that we still play our role. It does not compel us as council members to appoint individuals that come with a recommendation of ICPOC, but it does require that there's some collaboration and partnership there in moving a nomination forward.
Further discussion?
Mayor?
Yes.
If I could just add, yeah, so as you all have questions on this between now and the meeting, I'm happy to work with you on those. In relation to the last matter, the item that staff brought forward to ICPOC, what we have here is really a situation that may take some time to finish all the internal reviews and work. And an effort to allow the commission to start its work and work on the things that have been completed is where that change comes into play. It's not an intention to have them in front of or with the other reviews, but actually not wait on the whole thing to be done before they get access to anything. But happy to continue discussions with that and answer your questions as we move forward.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It is approved. ES1, resolution to award a contract to Manpower, Inc. of Southeastern Michigan for temporary staffing services for public works, RFP number 2109, moved by Councilmember Redina, second by Councilmember Dish. Discussion, please, at DS1, Councilmember Redina.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Before we get too far down this process, I have submitted an amendment to the clerk. If you could please circulate that around. My amendment would alter this contract to reduce the period of time from 3 years to 1 year and eliminate the option to renew for 2 additional years.
That circulated yet? Is there a second? Second by Councilmember Song. Councilmember Redina, you still have the floor.
Thanks. And so this is coming. I actually want to thank a number of council members who I've spoken with, council members Iyer, Briggs, Nelson, and Dish, who I've spoken with, as well as some members from the labor community around this topic. But in particular, I think some of this relates back to standing council policy around filling positions that essentially not filling positions that probably should be permanent with temporary employees, and looking at kind of the details around this contract and the fact that that these employees are filling essentially 9-month terms for consecutive years, and also recognizing that we are looking at some potential changes to not only our composting, but also some of our winter maintenance and things like that. That I think a shorter term contract is probably more appropriate as we continue to work out those details and determine whether or not there will ultimately be changes to our full-time employee makeup in the future.
Is this amendment friendly to the body? Is that a no, Councilmember Amlai?
I just have questions for the city administrator.
Councilmember Ditch, I'm going to take you off the queue and you can pop back in on the main motion if that's all right, unless you want to speak on the amendment. You were prior, so.
Correct. I did want to speak on the amendment, but I am.
My apologies, Councilmember Ditch.
No, not a problem. Let me let Councilmember Amlawi ask his questions, and then I'll pop in.
Councilmember Amlawi.
Thank you. To Mr. Crawford and the staff, I mean, would this have any negative effect on your ability to do what needs to be done with this resolution and what it's being asked for? I would assume not, but I just wanted to make sure that this doesn't have any kind of unintended consequence other than what the obvious is.
Mr. Crawford?
Mayor, we have Molly Masieski here to speak to the operational impacts.
Masieski?
So the question was, will there be direct operational impacts from changing for the amendment that's on the floor?
That's right. Yeah, just going from the 3-year to 1 year. I would imagine it wouldn't have much of an impact, but
There will not be an impact
just okay.
in the short term.
Thank you. It's friendly, Mayor. I have no objection. Thank you.
All right, the amendment is friendly. Councilmember Dish, you.
Let's vote on that, and then I'll speak. I'm just thinking.
If it's friendly, it doesn't require a vote.
Oh, okay. Okay, sorry.
That's all right.
So I wanted to ask staff how many
Right now, we have allocated 3 full-time employees, and with the passage of the fiscal year 22 budget, that'll increase to 4.
And then what this, and then it's typical in addition to that to hire 6 temps.
Yes, in the fall, we generally need up to 6 to help us with fall leaf season.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so thank you for clarifying that. So I think that the concerns that prompted Consul to not approve this contract extension last time were that we're really talking about a critical and repeated city need, which is filled with more temporary employees than it is with permanent employees. And the concern here is that a temporary employee could be working for 9 months out of the year. So that doesn't feel very temporary to me. And yet lose employment for 3 months out of the year, which does lead to a kind of precarity that I think is not desirable in a community that considers itself progressive. In addition, though temporary employees hired through the Manpower Agency receive a $16.50 per hour wage, which is over the city's minimum, or rather living wage. They and they do receive benefits. Those benefits cost them $160 a month, and they only cover the ACA, Affordable Care Act, minimum provisions. If they want life insurance, dental, vision, accident, or critical illness insurance, they have to pay extra for those. The AFSCME contract covers either all or all but one of those, and at a cost to the employee, who will be making a higher salary than the Manpower employee, of $140 a month. And so it's both a lower dollar amount and a lower proportion of the person's salary. So for me, though shifting from temporary to full-time workers to do this work will add an expense to the city, it is not correct for us to externalize the cost of providing full benefits and a non-precarious job to people who are working hard. So that is why I will support this amendment, and I hope in the future to see staff come back with a fully full-time staffed compost division. Thank you.
Mayor, I failed to mention on this one that there were some questions from Councilmember Dish in advance. Councilmember Dish, did you have all your questions answered, or do you need staff to review those? You had submitted them.
Remember, you're on mute.
Yeah. So the first one, Ms. Maciejewski did address the question, because I wanted that proportion, the question about benefits. If there's any more information or if I stated anything incorrectly, I would be happy to be corrected. And there was one more that I don't remember, and I don't have my memo in front of me, but I'm sure I would love to hear the answer.
I do have that. If you want, I can address those questions that you did, give this morning. Okay, sure. So yes, we covered the first question, which is how many full-time employees do we have allocated to compost right now? Your second question was that you noticed that there was a 5-fold increase in city hired temps for solid waste in fiscal year 21 versus Manpower, and it flipped in fiscal year 20. It was the exact opposite, and you wondered why. And I can say we honestly don't know. It just sort of ebbs and flows. We actually, the Manpower contract is an as-needed contract. We feel that that's really important because then we have the ability to hire direct through our city's HR unit first before we go to Manpower. Manpower sometimes just has candidates and we don't, or vice versa. And then your second question, or your third question, I'm sorry, was about the benefits. And the only thing that I would add to what you said is that the hourly rate that Manpower, the one that we most typically use is the temporary public works technician, which is at 19 an hour. But other than that, everything you stated was correct.
Councilor Griswold.
One thing I've heard from constituents over the years is the amount of damage that's done to vehicles in the street. And I don't know if this is totally overstated, but I'm just wondering if there's any relationship between temporary versus permanent staff and the number of insurance claims we have.
That would probably require a bit of digging to find out just what those numbers are. But yes. So
okay. I don't want you to do any extra work. I'm just wondering if that's obvious or if it's just being overstated by constituents.
Yeah. No, I haven't noticed.
Oh, okay.
I do think a lot of the damage comes from the trucks with the arms that do the pickup, and that's an issue not only of that's a little bit of a separate issue, but yes, it's the arms that drive that.
Okay, so we're going to blame it on an inanimate object rather than on staff. Good idea.
No, I'm just pointing out that.
No, I'm agreeing with you.
There's probably a variety of things that cause our accidents, especially in a crowded town like we have.
So okay, thanks.
Yep.
Councilmember Briggs.
Thanks. To keep my statement brief, I will just say that I agree with Councilmember Udina and Dish's comments. The only thing I wanted to add, if there's, or expand upon, was just if there's opportunity as we're thinking about how to keep these staff members occupied throughout the entire year. I know that staff is working on examining our winter sidewalk maintenance program, and if there's opportunities to use folks for that purpose, I would love to see that. If not, I understand.
The discussion? All in favor of the motion as amended, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It is approved. 51, resolution to appoint Jamal Bufford to the Ann Arbor Public Art Commission, moved by Councilmember Udina, seconded by Councilmember Dish. Discussion, please, of DC 1. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It's approved. 11 council members present, all voting in the affirmative, thus satisfying the 7-vote requirement. DC 2, resolution to appoint Chris Varden Brooke, Luliana Oriole, and Yongwen Zheng to the Environmental Commission, moved by Councilmember Dish, seconded by Councilmember Griswold. Discussion, please, of DC 2. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Approved. DC 3, resolution to revise the 2021 council calendar, moved by Councilmember Udina, seconded by Councilmember Graham. Discussion, please, of DC 3. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Approved. DC 4, resolution to amend and extend the service contract for municipal resource recovery services for the City of Ann Arbor between the City of Ann Arbor and Recycle Ann Arbor for one 18-month term with mutual option for 1-year extension, estimated $1,641,528 for 18 months of the contract, with an estimated total contract value of $30,059,406 from fiscal year 06 through fiscal year 23. Moved by Council Member Nelson, seconded by Council Member Udina. Discussion, please, of DC 4. Member Wiley.
Thank you. I just wanted to take this opportunity to thank staff and the folks at Recycle Ann Arbor for working together and coming to an agreement here to help us in a situation which I find ourselves probably racing up against the clock with the expiration of the current contracts. It's good to see that the relationship between these interested parties have yielded mutually beneficial results. So it's good to see us working with our community partners. When I first joined council, it was a little bit different, and it's good to see the working relationship now in a much better place. Thank you.
Further discussion? I'll say as well that I'm delighted that this will be moving forward. I know very much that folks throughout the city are committed to recycling, and they're also proud of our local nonprofit Recycle Ann Arbor. And I'm glad that the city and Recycle Ann Arbor are going to be working continue to work together at the MRF and moving us all forward in the direction that we want to go. Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It's approved. Mr. Postman, do we have a closed session today?
Yes, we do. We have a closed session involving the purchase of land under the Open Meetings Act.
May I have a motion, please, to go in closed session on that basis? Moved by Councilmember Nelson, second by Councilmember Graham. Discussion, please. Roll call vote, starting with Councilmember Iyer.
Was Councilmember Romlawi going to make a comment on that?
Oh, I'm sorry.
You
I
wanted
didn't see
to
that. Thank you.
Well, I was
Councilmember
just going to
Nelson,
ask Ms.
thank you.
Bodie, just so we can get in there without too much delay, if she can send a link for that closed session, separate link. Thank you.
Councilmember Nelson, thank you for the note.
I can resend it. It's in the original meeting request. I revised it today with the closed session link, but I can resend it in an email.
Please, thank you.
Roll call vote, please, starting with Councilmember Iyer.
Councilmember Iyer?
Yes.
Councilmember Nelson?
Yes.
Councilmember Briggs?
Yes.
Councilmember Romlawi?
Yes.
Councilmember Hayner?
Yes.
Councilmember Dish?
Yes.
Councilmember Griswold?
Yes.
Councilmember Song?
Yes.
Councilmember Grand?
Yes.
Councilmember Dina?
Yes.
Mayor Taylor?
Yes,
Motion carries.
we are in closed session. See you on the other side. open session. Moved by Councilmember Grens, second by Councilmember Lowry. Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Back in open session. We have before us the clerk's report of communications, petitions, and referrals. May I have a motion, please, to approve the clerk's report? Moved by Councilmember Dish, second by Councilmember Griswold. Discussion, please. All in favor? Opposed? Clerk's report is approved. Do we have communications today from our city attorney?
No, Mayor, thank you.
Thank you. We now come to public comment general time. Public comment general time is an opportunity for members of the public to speak to council and the community about matters of municipal interest. To speak at public comment general time, one need not have signed up in advance. To speak at public comment general time, please enter the number on your screen, 877-853-5247. 877-853-5247. Once you've been connected, please enter meeting ID 942-1273-2148. 942-1273-2148. Once you're connected, please further enter *9, *9 to indicate that you wish to speak. When it is your turn to speak, our clerk will identify you by the last 3 digits of your telephone number. When it is your turn to speak, you will have 3 minutes in which to speak. So please pay close attention to the time. Our clerk will notify you when 30 seconds are remaining and when your time is expired. When your time is expired, please conclude your remarks and cede the floor. Is there anyone who would like to speak at public comment?
Mayor, I don't see anybody with their hand up.
Seeing no one, public comment is closed. Are there communications today from council? Councilmember Briggs.
Thank you. I wanted to draw folks' attention to a couple things that are on the agenda. One was in E1, the Michigan Drive Safe Bill. There's a recommendation from Transportation Commission. I just wanted to make a note that I'll be bringing forward that as a resolution for council to consider supporting as well, hopefully at our next meeting. And then I didn't comment on this earlier, but for CA20, the collective bargaining agreement, I did just want to kind of publicly state I appreciate all of the work that staff did on coming to the concessions that we have and the improvements in that. I would hope that maybe the next time around we might be able to make a little bit more progress on Article 5, Section 3, which deals with discipline. There's a piece in there, and I think constituents for drawing my attention to this that says that disciplinary recommendations shall not be based on infractions which have occurred more than 24 months prior to the incident currently under investigation. That's something that I would hope that we would move away from in the future. Particularly, these are leadership positions that we're looking at here. I think the best example folks could be demonstrating is that we should care what that history looks like. So maybe in our next contract that could be something that could be considered. But once again, thanks for the good work that everybody did on that.
Councilmember Griswold.
I want to acknowledge all the volunteers at the Juneteenth celebration and mention that I was surprised to see Councilmember Jane Lum as part of the Give 365 team. So that was a very enjoyable event, as well as the 50th anniversary of Peace Neighborhood Center. Their party was tonight, but Tom Crawford and I were able to sneak a visit in and a cupcake before we came to council. And lastly, the caucus that I administer is taking a summer pause. A lot of things are changing right now as restrictions are lifted with the pandemic, and if I'm looking at other options that might be a little less formal and more enjoyable. So if anyone has any suggestions in viewing audience, please contact me. It's for the council, but also for the community. So we want to meet your needs as well. So thank you.
Councilmember Hayner.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Just a couple quick announcements I neglected at the start of the meeting. Thursday, I'm going to be attending a virtual seminar. It should be pretty interesting. It's titled James Baldwin, Race, Media, and Psychoanalysis. And if anybody's interested in that nexus of those topics, I'll send you a link to it. It looks to be pretty interesting. And there's a film and some interview footage with Mr. Baldwin that is a bit of a documentary that it's going to be discussing. And I don't know if you maybe saw in the news, I mean, James Baldwin's kind of a hero of mine, but ABC recently discovered a 2020 interview that was taken in the early days of that show with Mr. Baldwin that they then proceeded to can because for the typical reasons you might imagine. In fact, it was kind of repugnant what the ABC, what this reporter said ABC told him about not putting Mr. Baldwin on the air anymore. And so I think it's very timely to take a look at that. Also, the Northside Food Forest Workday is this upcoming Sunday, June 27th. We had a great turnout at the last one, and it's really coming along nicely. And then finally, I just wanted to briefly, so, sometimes I'll dedicate a moment of silence to somebody that we do at the start of the meeting. And, I want to dedicate today's moment of silence to Lane Lesko, who's a neighbor, the murdered by the police, son of some good friends of mine and some good neighbors. And so Lane Lesko, I'm on this day some years back on June 21st. And so, to Lane Lesko, and everybody, all his family, may his memory be a blessing. Thank you.
Councilor Shaw.
I just wanted to give a quick update to some folks who might have heard about a recent shooting in Ipsy of a young 6-year-old boy. I've been working with local Black leaders and electeds and trying to form a response ahead of some worries and some misinformation on social media on the shooter having been released and is back in custody. Black Asian relations have been strained, and there's an effort now where Board of Education trustee Crystal Dupree and I are organizing a solidarity cookout for next month, and just hoping to bring our communities together, bring our babies together, have some good food together. So that will be coming forward to council because it looks like we're getting a little bit beyond a handful of families we had initially intentionally wanted to pull together before the shooting. Now that it looks like we're going to be at about 100 and over, they'll have to come to council review for that park rental. So we're working on the specifics of that in partnership with Community Action Network, who kindly came forward as a fiscal sponsor for this. So not city related, but something that will pop on the agenda as soon as staff, thankfully, hopefully can review that. So probably end of July, lots of good food, lots of good people, and hopefully some good work ahead. And also thanks to the County Dems Black Caucus for coming forward and working so quickly on a statement against hate in the county. Thanks.
Councilman Grant.
Thank you. I just want to congratulate the Ann Arbor Housing Commission and Community Action Network on the grand opening this Friday of the Creekside Court Community Center, which is the Housing Commission's newest properties that opened this year. It's 32 units reserved for households earning no more than half the median income, and it was able to provide housing for a number of families and individuals on the waiting list. And it's a partnership that's been successful for a long time, and it's wonderful to see them expand in our city. So congratulations to them.
Further discussion? Pardon me, further communications? May I have a motion to adjourn, please? Moved by Councilmember Malawi, seconded by Councilmember Ryer. Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Bye, folks.